Hello. I hope somebody's watching this. It's always a little bit strange talking to myself. Um, Welcome to the APBC's latest Ask the Expert. And Rosie has asked myself, as a parrot behaviourist and enthusiast, to come along and answer some questions about parrot behaviour. So hopefully the video will all go successfully. You can see Sparky in the background. He's just had his dinner, and yeah, I think he's going to go on top of his cage and cause mayhem and destruction. One of the reasons why I put Sparky's cage over there in the corner is that helps to foster a feeling of security. Having that corner position, it means that he can relax, as only people can approach him on two sides, from the front and to the other side. Quite often, if I'm out of the house and he has to be in the cage, then I will pull his cage over to the window so that he can shout out at the birds who come to the garden. And Sparky quite enjoys shouting and things. So I will go through some of the questions that we've had, and I've just pulled them up on another screen. And do feel free to ask any other questions that you might have. As I said, it's very odd not to have any sort of feedback or even be able to see who's watching. I hope that, hey, Rosie Barclay's joined us, so that's great. Rosie was always very encouraging towards me as I pursued more and more parrot behaviour things. So it's nice that she's joined us, and she's had experience of trying to talk to me with parrots in the background making lots and lots of noise. So we have a very good question from Leanne Williams, who has rescued a grey, and unfortunately that poor grey is having some seizures, and he's medicated, and the seizures seem to have been stabled. So no, I'm not going to answer any veterinary questions, except I'm glad to see that she's taking the parrot to a good avian vet, so that's always successful. But not, Leanne was wondering if her parrot was having a good quality of life. She's 20 years of age, sorry, she's a she, and it's always a big consideration for us when our parrots are ill. Are they having a good quality of life? And I think the fact that she's got a loving home with somebody who's really cares for her, her seizures are being stabilized now. I think she's having a very good quality of life. To get to 20 and be having seizures, this bird is doing jolly well. And with good care, good nutrition, and lots of attention, there is no reason at all why she couldn't possibly live for another 20, 30 years. So don't worry about that. Should you rescue another one in future for company? Well, that's often a question I'm asked. If we have one, should we have more than one? Yes, parrots do like to have company of their own kind. You don't write to say whether or not your parrot is from the new world or the old world. So that would be useful information. Really, thank you, Sparky. Really, the old world parrots prefer the company of their own kind. You won't find a grey parrot mixing with other kinds of birds. They tend to just stick amongst their own kind. Even with parrots, Sparky's a tag, and I have two cags, the larger grey ones. They don't tend to hang out, and they don't particularly overly like each other. So do bear that in mind if you're choosing to get another parrot, that you get one of the same variety, I suppose you could say. It's far easier to integrate other parrots when one has New World parrots, macaws and Amazons and stuff like that. Because when you see them out in the wild, they do interact with each other a great deal. In 3 weeks' time, I'm off to Brazil, to the Pantanal, and one of the things I'm really looking forward to is seeing the hyacinth macaws, the scarlets, the golds, and also some Amazonians. And I'm going to a particular area whereby the parrots of different species will all congregate at the clay lick. When I've been in Uganda and Sotomi and Principe, you see that the greys just hang out themselves. They're quite antisocial with other birds. Another good question from Alison. She was wondering when she goes to work if her CAG is lonely and bored, and she also wants to know if she should get another bird. And Alison quite rightly says that, you know, she's read that the CAGs don't really socialise much with other birds. They don't socialise that much with other species, but they do with their own. And certainly in some countries in Europe, it is a legal requirement that one keeps more than one parrot of the same species for that very reason, company. So there's no reason that you couldn't choose to adopt another CAG for company. And I'm more than happy to be contacted if you want some advice on introducing a other CAG to the flock. Because if you do it properly, it can be very, very successful. It can take some time, but it can be done. Now, you're asking if your CAG is lonely and bored. I go to work, I do lots of things outside of the house, and my birds will be left for periods during the day and sometimes the evening. Are they lonely and are they bored? I don't think so, and I have set up video cameras to look at what they're doing when I'm not here. Now, one of the great things is that I go to my bed late at night. When I'm home, the birds are out. So they actually spend more time out of their cages than they do in their cages. It is a big, huge myth that birds need 12 hours of darkness and sleep every night. And if you were covering your bird's cage at 8 o'clock and uncovering at 8 o'clock in the morning, well, that's a lot of time that that bird could simply be hanging out with you. What you'll notice is if you get the bird into the same routine as you have, you come home from work, say at 6 o'clock, the bird's hanging out with you until you go to your bed at 11, 12 o'clock. Well, that's a lot more time with you. It doesn't mean that you have to be constantly doing things with your bird. It's just simply hanging out, watching on Facebook, watching some TV. Even having dinner together can make a big, big difference. So it's all about quality time with them. You can get lots of things for your birds to do in terms of enrichment. One of the big things to consider is look at what your bird does when he or she is free in the house. Are they chewers? One of my birds, Roy, is quite famous now because of the amount of damage he does to Encyclopedia Britannica. He loves chewing them up. So I give him old books to chew up. Milo, one of my CAGs, he's into wood destruction, door frames, that sort of thing. So now that I've parrot-proofed my doors, I give him wood. I grew white willow so that he could chew that up. So I give him harder things to chew and he's quite happy. So it's not a case of one hat fits all in terms of enrichment. It's looking to see what your bird actually does, what he enjoys doing, and providing that. Sparky over there. Hi, Sparky. Sparky bum. Sparky's a shredder of paper. He loves tissue paper to shred. So I quite often just put some tissue paper on top of his crate and he can pull it through, rip it up, all of that lovely stuff. So I'm very glad that all three of them do not chew up wood, because that would just be mind-blowing. Luna would like to know about how to build confidence in her bird, how to bring him out of his shell. He's a rescue cockatiel who's been living with her for years, but he gets very, very neophobic when anything new is presented in the environment. Doesn't want to really play, doesn't seem to really want to take part in any training, and he spends his days quietly sitting, preening, sleeping and eating. Thank you. That was very nice of you. Thank you, Sparky. That was a nice sound. I'm trying to encourage Sparky with nice sounds rather than the smoke alarm sounds, which he's famous for. Absolutely famous for them. So really, they're wanting to find out what they can do, any tricks and things. And the best advice I can give you, Luna, is start doing some activities yourself. You know, bring your tail in, maybe the dining room table, sit him on a chair, and then perhaps get some craft projects yourself involving some tissue paper or some wood blocks. And the more that you take an interest in them, by Jove, he'll soon want to take an interest in those as well. So that makes a big difference. So if you do things, they want to join in. And don't forget, even just sitting down, both of you reading a book, your tail sitting on your lap, that's still you spending good quality time with them. And slowly but surely, they want to become interested, perhaps start to chew up your book or something like that. When introducing any sort of new toys, etc., put them at a distance away from the parrot. Don't just fling them at them or put them close to them, because remember, neophobia isn't just a genetic component to neophobia. There's also survival. Anything weird in the environment can kill you, and that's how a parrot looks at the world, isn't it? You don't like new objects either, do you? No, you don't. Sparky isn't a great one for new objects either. So it's a case of putting things at a distance, keep trying, and then after months, they might take an interest in it. But my advice is don't give up. Just keep trying and seeing what they do. Also remember that not a lot of the birds that we see on the internet, on YouTube videos, stuff like that, they're the exceptional birds that are doing lots of tricks. Most birds don't really. Thanks for joining us, Michelle, and that is a really good question, which I'm going to cover, and it's very pertinent to my poor husband as well. So I'll get on to that. What have I done? I'm speaking about parrots. That's what I'm doing. So yeah, Karina has asked about foraging and enrichment and always looking for new ideas for her CAG. Again, neophobic about new objects. Now, I don't know if, Karina, you read about some of the stuff I've been writing about the Princepi grey parrots. I was there a few weeks ago, and I was absolutely blown away by these parrots compared to any of the other grey parrots I've seen elsewhere in Uganda. The Princepi greys are exceptionally neophobic. To the point where if you walk within 100 meters of them, they will scream and crash through the trees as they fly away from you. I couldn't get any closer than about 100 meters. And I've been really close to grey parrots in Uganda, the Sessi Islands, and various other places. So it made me wonder if there's something different about these Princepi greys. And if you remember, a lot of the Princepi greys did end up in the pet trade. And we know from our work with dogs and cats, that increased neophobia, there can be a genetic component to that. So bear in mind, it may take your parrot that little bit longer to get used to things. So show them at a distance, show them that it's not a danger, play with it yourself, and gradually he will get better at accepting new objects. That's really good that you've been living 18 years with them. I live with 3 parrots. Roy is 35, Milo is 10, and Sparky over there is 11. So there, he's just a youngster. He's just a teenage hooligan at the moment. But he's a cracking little bird for a tag. He agrees. And he's very full of himself, and he likes to be the center of attention whenever I'm trying to talk or do anything. Right, so yeah, I think it's a good place to go on to. Quite a few of you have asked about your birds preferring one person over another person, and I think it's a really good place to sort of explain parrot dynamics. And I only began to fully understand that when I began to study their social behavior in the wild. And yeah, that's 6-7 years I've been going to Uganda and looking at grey parrots and standing for hours under a tree and just watching the flocks and how they interact with each other. What we have to remember about especially our grey parrots, is how sociable they are. They are incredibly sociable creatures. They don't just form a sexual bond with a mate, they form friendships throughout that flock. And one of the places that I discovered that I've referred to as in Nkusu village, and I call it Nkusu village so nobody else can actually find them, just in case they're stolen from the wild. And when you go to Nkusu village and you watch the regular parrots coming together in the morning, they will be playful with one, they might rub beaks with another, and then they fly off to forage with a other again. But what you can see is that there's lots of different social interactions, friendships between the grey parrots. Now, when you put them into the house, and observing this myself with my own parrots, in my own household, our parrots form different relationship styles with individual members within the family. So, for example, my middle son, Connor, and Milo were playmates. Milo used to go up to Connor's bedroom every evening, hang out when Connor was watching the PlayStation, playing the PlayStation. Then Milo would come downstairs, come into the TV room, watch TV with us. My husband used to play away with them, and I was mum. I was the one that provided the food. I did the boring stuff. I taught them the rules of the road, how to behave in the household, all of those mummy stuff. So when Milo was young, I thought he always chose them over me. And it was very important to remember not to take offense to that. He just has a different relationship style with me. And I always remember Dr. Anne McBride saying to me, just you wait when the children move out of the house and you are everything to them. And thus it was. The children have moved into their own homes, and Milo hangs out with me a little bit more than he used to when the children were younger. So always remember, do not take it personally if your birds seem to prefer one over the other. They will have their playmate, they will have their friend that they just hang out watching TV with, and they will have the one that they want to sit beside at dinner time. When you're having problems with a parrot perhaps reacting to somebody else in the household, ask that person to take a few steps backwards and just simply be with the parrot. Stop trying to be their friend. Friendship will come, but on the parrot's term. A really good way of trying to establish a friendship, a group living, is to have a flock dinner. Every evening when we have dinner, we sit down. Roy might walk into the room, and Milo always joins us for dinner. And we just hang out, having dinner together. And he really enjoys that. So don't take it personally. So another good way of establishing peace is for the person who feels victimized by the bird is to be the provider of some nice things, perhaps some nice tidbits, and just very passively go towards the parrot's cage. Don't make direct eye contact, don't stare at them, drop a piece of food into their bowl, go away. In other words, the parrot doesn't have to do anything to get the food, but the food is delivered in the presence of the person that they feel a wee bit angsty at. And that really does help the situation. Quite often, we do take exception when we perceive that our parrots don't like us. And it's very rarely to find that parrots really do detest the people that they're living with, but sometimes the relationship goes a bit wonky. So I hope that's helped. Okay, Nicholas has joined us and asked a really good question. He has 2 cags, male and female, that come from the same clutch. At what age would I suggest that you house them in different cages? I don't want them breeding. Okay, no, the last thing any of us want is those 2 breeding. You know that they're DNA sexed, male and female. You've had that confirmation from your vet, so we don't want that really happening. I'm a great believer in every bird should have his own space. So I would never ever suggest housing 2 birds in the same cage, no matter how big the cage is. Think of it as you and your partner being locked in a downstairs toilet and left. There's no space, there's no escape from each other. And one of the things you notice when you start looking at